Hello and welcome to News Central Now. I am Adebola Adejuba. The headlines. Federal government of Nigeria calls for emergency meeting with organized labor. South Africa's president urges parties to find common ground after elections. Egypt's President Sisi assigns Prime Minister Madbouly to form new government. And details shortly. We begin with the industrial action by organized labor as the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress commence the proposed indefinite strike across the country. Work activities in parts of Lagos State have been put on hold. At the State Secretariat in Alausa, workers were seen standing at the entrance where they were denied access by the members of the Labour Union. Our correspondent Bernard Akedi paid visits to parts of Lagos to observe compliance with the strike.
Locked gates and empty office premises characterized the Lagos State Government Secretariat in Alausa as NLC and the TUC officials stood guard, ensuring all staff complied with the proposed industrial action, which commenced on Monday.
A bus from the Nigerian Civil Service Union has been parked in front of this entrance of Alausa Secretariat since about 6:30 this morning, right from when we were coming to work, and it hasn't moved, just to ensure that nobody gets in. We spoke to some of the officials of the National Trade Union Congress who are there in front of the gate, and they said that staff buses did come this morning, but they turned all of them back. Now, just behind you can see, like a queue of people standing there. These are presumably staff of the Lagos State Secretariat, still hanging around, probably hoping that something may happen. But the Trade Union Congress members have said nothing would happen.
Some workers tried to make their way into the office complex, but were turned back.
We are here to monitor compliance to the TUC and NLC strike directive. All government workers, both private and public, must comply with the TUC directive.
The situation was the same at other entrances and exits of the State Secretariat, as well as the State House of Assembly. Locked gates with standby security operatives to prevent a degeneration of the situation. With different sectors officially stating that they will be joining the strike, including the petroleum industry, it was not surprising to see that queues had started building up in some filling stations.
Behind me is a fuel station, a mobile filling station, like some other filling stations within Lagos that we have seen. We're beginning to see queues build up in some of these places. They are selling petrol and other products as usual, but this may be as a result of panic buying, and that's why we're seeing the queues. More often than not, when there's a pending strike action or an ongoing strike action, citizens tend to come out in numbers to buy product from fuel stations, just in case the petroleum sector also gets affected.
Even the health sector wasn't spared. Upon arrival at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital, union members had to go from office to office to ensure workers complied with the directive issued by the national body.
At this juncture, we have no option but to follow the directive of our national body. Our emergency units have been exempted from participating in the strike, So, and I think that's a good one as far as proceeding with this strike is concerned.
The suffering is too much. Why will the federal government, they said roundtable, the NSC, the TUC, they have been, deliberating on this roundtable for so long. Enough is enough, please. Enough is enough. For them to know where the truth is pins us. Let them go, let the Senate, the whatever, let them put their salary on this minimum wage too, and let's see what will happen.
In Borno State, the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress have enforced the compliance with an indefinite nationwide strike. The Borno State chapter denied the head of services access to the State Secretariat and locked down various government agencies, departments and parastatals. Our correspondent Umaru Kirawa tells us more.
The strike action comes amidst unresolved issues between the labor unions and Nigeria's federal government. Leadership of both the NLC and TUC in Borno State in company of some labor leaders who are in some government establishments to enforce compliance. Agencies, departments, and parastatals have been effectively locked down, grinding government operations to a standstill.
There is total compliance with the workers of Borno State. Where we visited, we were able to visit one of the federal institutions, Federal Training, Industrial Training Fund, where we met them working and we asked them to leave. We've chased them out, we've locked the gate and asked them to leave the premises. So based on our assessment today, there is total compliance. We don't have problem, and then the monitoring will continue up to tomorrow, up to the end of the strike.
As the strike enters its critical phase, there are growing calls for swift action by the federal government to address the grievances of the workers and restore normalcy.
It's sad, but on a good note, we're happy that Labour are trying to put things in place. But on a sad note, we're trying to make travels, and this is so crucial. We call on the required entities to ensure that this is put in place. Grounding travel has a lot to do with the entire economy of the whole nation. So we call on the required people to have to do things quickly. It's sad that everyone is here to travel and then everything is grounded. So sad. Sad. What a nation like this. Sad.
This strike has effectively shut down administrative activities across Borno State, as public servants have been forced to withdraw their services.
We have been with you since in the morning. We went to the Musa Osman Secretary. In fact, we even denied the head of service and the secretary to the state government entering to the secretariat.
However, there was vehicular movement and businesses ongoing in the state capital, with hospitals providing skeletal services.
We'll go and relax and then continue receiving report from various affiliates so that tomorrow we pick from where we stay. Where there is challenges, we continue from there.
The Nigerian workers are protesting the non-implementation of the new minimum wage and other unmet welfare demands by the federal government.
The Borno State Head of Service was denied access into the state secretariat here in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, and the organized labor maintained that until matters are settled, such effort will be continued within the state and beyond. In Maiduguri for News Central, Umaru Kirawa.
In the meantime, the federal government has called for an emergency meeting of the tripartite committee on the new national minimum wage through the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission. The meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June the 4th. The previous meeting of the committee was abruptly stopped on May 31st when the organized labor negotiation team left as the government had organized private sector refused to increase their offer of 60,000 naira. And this is coming as the first day of the indefinite strike called by organized labor to protest the stalemate in the minimum wage negotiation with the federal government recorded huge success and crippled Nigeria. In the meantime, the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, while addressing the press, said the federal government will continue to negotiate with labor.
We will continue to engage with labor. We are waiting for them. We have extended invitation to them, and government will continue to engage with them in the interest of our nation. Ours is a democracy, and whatever solution we have must be along the fashion of democratic ideals. Thank you. The tripartite agreement is still there. It has not been disbanded. Indeed, it is Labour that actually stepped out of that meeting. We are appealing to them to come back. Whatever appeal they have has to be made during those meetings. You know that the tripartite committee has three parts, as the name suggests. The government side has the federal government, the subnationals, meaning the state governments and local governments, the organized labor, Nigerian Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress, and their affiliates. And then we have the organized private sector, made up of NASIMA, NECA, and all the rest. So, two of them are already moving in the same direction. It is Labour that has stepped out of this agreement. We are appealing to Labour to come back to the negotiating table. Once that is done, we believe that an amicable solution can be found. Government has not closed its doors on anything. What government has offered is its own position, realistic position. If Labour feels that that is still not okay, there's still an opportunity for them to come back to the negotiating table and talk to the other two parts of the committee. And then we believe that we are all Nigerians, And like the Honourable Minister here said, an amicable solution is available for all of us. We need to seize it, we need to take it. Strike is not the only way out. Now, the other part of your question regarding what the AGF has said.
To discuss the labour strike, I'm joined live on the news by lawyer and managing partner Bayo Sani. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me.
Glad to be here too.
Let me start by asking if you think organised labour followed mandatory procedures outlined in the Trade Dispute Act for notifying the government.
Thank you very much. You see, I read the statement of the Attorney General while he said the same thing that you just said now, that Labour did not give the mandatory 15 days notice before embarking on a strike action. And sincerely speaking, I feel that that statement is unfair to the Nigerian Labour Congress and Nigerians at large, as a whole. Why did I say so? Look, apart from...
Apologies for causing you short there, Mr. Sani. Just to notify our viewers, we have another guest joining us live, and that is Okpoluwa Dakpo Thomas, who is an international financial analyst. Glad to have you join us as well, Mr. Dakpo Thomas. Back to you regarding the strike.
So when we're talking about, Labour has embarked on industrial action now, that's the strike action, and we're talking about 15 days notice. That shows that the Attorney General or the federal government is prioritizing technicality over the substantive issue here. Okay? What are the substantive issues? We're talking about the welfare of workers. We're talking about federal government's commitment to the palliative measures and several other measures to cushion the effect of several policies. Although policies in the right direction, but policies that have harsh effect on Nigerians as a whole. Now, if you're now saying that Labour did not give this 15 days mandatory notice before embarking on strike, you are also ignoring their own right of freedom of association, their freedom of expression. And this strike is one of the measures to put pressure on federal government to do the right thing.
In the light of what you have said, how would you respond to criticisms of those saying that the strike is illegal for reasons of not following the TDA procedures?
TDA procedures. Are we looking at only TDA procedures here now? We are not. As a matter of fact, if they are talking about this notice, they're probably talking about Section 46 of the TDA. And Section 46 of TDA did not outrightly make it mandatory for Labour to give this notice. It says that they should follow the procedure, all right? And if you also look at this procedure that we're talking about, they are also in violation of several international labour laws and charters, which Nigeria has ratified as a member state. So why are we now reading one part and we are leaving out the other part? Do you understand? The notice should not be taken in isolation. And even, that is also, that even shows you, it tells you that it's a clear technical argument here. Because we didn't start from that angle. We didn't start from that point. We didn't start this year. They've been on this issue since last year, as far back as last year. So if you're talking about notice, if you have looked at the scenarios that have played out since subsidy was removed and Labour's reaction to the removal of subsidy, all in the interest of protecting their members, then we should say that several notices have been given.
Let me take a moment to move to our next guest, Mr. Okpoluwa. Let me ask what you think the economic consequences of prolonged industrial action may be, and also the impacts on the broader economy.
It will be affected, and that's something that we have to actually acknowledge. Number one, because of the policies the government has done in the last year, obviously we're expecting GDP to slow down because consumers and expenditure will go down, purchasing power will go down. So if you factor that, and then you are putting in indefinite strike actions, and you are turning off the national grid, and you're putting off people from going to work, it will have a consequence on government revenues, economic outputs, and those are things that we have to look out for. So it's going to actually affect productivity, and when productivity is affected, it will cause job losses. So for example, if companies are not making sales, they can have to lay off people and say, okay, you're not coming to work, might as well lay you off. And those are things that we have to look at. It can also affect movement, affect lives, that people in hospitals as well that obviously need this power supply. So it really depends on, from an economic standpoint, not bulging to labor's demands and labor extending this indefinite strike would have an effect on the economy, which would obviously see in the GDP figures later on.
Now, talking in the light of all you have mentioned, let's talk about solutions now. In what ways can the federal government and also workers negotiate to resolve disputes and also avoid industrial action? And what alternative dispute mechanisms would you recommend?
I mean, the Minister of Information has already said they could come back to the negotiation table. It's a tripartite committee, federal government, private sector, labor. Private sector and federal government say this is what they can afford. And this is based on the economic realities of the country. Now, people need to understand what that means. At 30,000 naira, some states were not able to afford the minimum wage, or they even did not pay the minimum wage. Now, government saying 60,000 naira means that this is what they can afford. Now, labor has to come to the drawing table and have some compromise. You can't sit at 400,000 or whatever figures they've called out and expect government to come and meet you there, because government cannot afford it. There's nothing, at the end of the day, the interest of the government is to do what's best for the nation. And what's best for the nation would not be taken to 400,000 because of the inflationary pressures or the inflationary impact of high wages that are not tailored with productivity and revenue would do to the economy. And government is not going to borrow money to fund resources. People also need to understand that there are different stakeholders in this. You have government workers, you have private sector workers. So telling me to come up with a minimum wage, and you have state workers, telling me to come up with a minimum wage that would only affect a tiny percentage, or that would only be implemented by a tiny percentage of the people, it's not going to be productive for the country. If you look at the National Minimum Wage Act, and we have a lawyer in the house who can obviously support what I'm saying, it is compulsory for everyone to pay the minimum wage. I don't think in your own discretion as private sector, you can decide to pay something less than that. I stand to be corrected if I'm wrong. I know that there are different exemptions in the statutes that obviously can make someone earn less than the minimum wage.
Let me quickly shift to Mr. Sonny, Mr. Thomas. Thank you for your perspective. Let me come to you. Let's get your legal perspective. What are the available mechanisms for resolving disputes like this between the government and then organized labor? What's the way out?
You see, usually when we are talking about our alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, the labor law already prescribed the procedure, all right, which the government, that they have put into place since last year. That is negotiation, or you go up the route of mediation, all right? By law, the minister, that's even the role, that's the function of the Minister of Labor. You understand? The federal government standing as an employer on one side, labor union standing as the other party, standing together, that's the organized labor on the other side, while the Minister of Labor stays in between as maybe that's when we should even look at some of the amendments or some of the things we need to review about our laws. Because if you have the Minister of Labor, who is also an appointee of the federal government, playing the role of a mediator, do you understand? There's already a bias there, okay? But the issue we have in Nigeria is not really about the mechanisms. It's the sincerity of purpose, all right? When you come to a table, you come to the negotiation table, how sincere are you? And we shouldn't look at this dispute on one side. It is a dispute, trade dispute, which shows that there's party A, there's party B. And we shouldn't look at it from one side. That's why the law says that hear the other side, or the trend patterns. We should hear the other side. Do you understand? We shouldn't look at the effect of one party's reaction on one party alone. You get what I'm saying? If you look at it that, okay, this will cause a lot of hardship on federal government's revenue. I mean, this will have an adverse effect on federal government's revenue. This will have an adverse effect on the economy as a whole. That's what people on the federal government side are saying. What about the members of the Nigerian Labour Congress? Human beings. What are they doing? You understand? So we should look at it also from their own angle. You get what I'm saying? The right mechanism is in place. That is negotiation. All right? But the sincerity of purpose is what is absent here.
And that's a fine place to wrap up. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Bayo Sonny, lawyer and managing partner, Bayo & Co. And as well as our guest that joined us live on the news, and that's the international financial analyst, Okpeoluwa Dakpo-Thomas. Thank you both, gentlemen, for your time on the news. You're live with News Central TV. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Commanders from the Nigeria Army School of Supply and Transport have converged on Benin City, the Edo State capital, to deliberate on ways that they can reposition the cause. The corps commander of the Nigeria Army Corps of Supply and Transport says that the 2024 conference will offer corps an opportunity to explore and interrogate ideas from all corps commanders across the country as they strive to achieve the goals and objectives set by the Chief of the Army Staff.
The Corps Commander Supply and Transport Conference provides an avenue for all supply and transport officers across the country to come and reassess their performance towards achieving the command philosophy of our Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General T.A. Lagbaja, Nigerian Army Medal, to ensure that our activities, our work, our thinking, our preparation, and our training are all geared towards optimally delivering on our tasks and responsibilities, but heavily guided by his command philosophy.
And now we move to health matters. The Nigerian government signed into law the new National Health Insurance Act 2022 on 19th May 2021. It aims to secure mandatory health insurance for every Nigerian and legal resident and establishes a fund for the vulnerable groups which will provide subsidy for health insurance coverage for vulnerable persons and payment of health insurance premiums for indigents. During the ministerial briefing, the Commissioner for Health in Lagos reiterated the need for health insurance for all citizens. Our correspondent Bettina Onweli tells us more.
Nigeria is the most populous black nation in Africa, with over 218 million people. However, a large percentage of this population has poor access to quality health care. Further studies reveal, according to a National Institute of Health survey, that less than 4% of Nigeria's population has health insurance. It is on this premise that health insurance is soon to be made mandatory in the country.
By virtue of the National Health Insurance Authority Act, it is now mandatory that all Nigerians should have at least the very basic healthcare and social health insurance that is provided by their state. For us in Lagos, it's called Ilera Eco.
Insurance policies are an advantage in societies exposed to poor medical attention because they help the insured to access first-hand health care by trained medical professionals. Health insurance often comes with specified care coverage. This means that you do not have to pay any time you need medical attention that falls within the scope of your insurance.
I think it's something I should think of because I think it's necessary and it's important to have it.
No, I don't have health insurance for now. It's still expensive. Do you know why? If I can be able to make 8,000 every month and be paying Lagos State for health insurance, what of people that I cannot be able to make it? What of the month that I cannot be able to afford that 8,000? What should I do? If I fall sick, I cannot take myself to the hospital again. Because of what? I cannot afford the 8,500 naira to pay.
I have health insurance now. Why is, anything can happen anytime.
Majority of Nigerians make out-of-pocket payments for health care. A 2018 Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey indicates that about 97% of Nigerians lack any form of health insurance. Thus, the National Health Insurance Act brings hope to over 83 million Nigerians living in poverty.
So far, as a culture, in Nigeria, we're not an insurance culture by nature. Most people would rather wait till they have a situation before they purchase health. And what we're trying to encourage Lagosians and Nigerians is that you need to anticipate that you're going to need healthcare at some point in the future. And the best way to do that is to have a health insurance package in your pocket. It is not when you are faced with a healthcare challenge that you should be looking for health insurance.
Health is wealth. The onus now lies with all and sundry to prioritize and take advantage of the various health insurance schemes that abound. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
Coming up, Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov visits junta-led Guinea. We have details after the break. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. The news continues in West Africa, where Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov visited Guinea on Monday on the first leg of an African tour aimed at buttressing Moscow's influence in the continent. Russia, which has seen its relations with the West plummet after it sent troops into Ukraine in 2022, has sought to boost its influence in Africa in recent years. Russia's foreign ministry announced the visits on the Telegram social media app with a photo of Lavrov arriving at Conakry Airport overnight, his first visit to Guinea since 2013. Lavrov is due to meet Guinea's junta leader, Mamadi Doumbouya, and the power since a coup in 2021. A Senegalese court on Monday sentenced 2 men to 3 months in jail for disinformation after they accused Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko of allegedly tolerating homosexuality. Political activist Ba Diakité and preacher Sheikh Ahmed were each also ordered to pay a fine of 100,000 naira francs. Sonko had recently warned that insistence on LGBTQ rights in diplomatic relations and from multinational organizations could lead to anti-Western sentiment. Diakité was detained on May 20th over a video that attacked Sonko over his declarations on homosexuality during a visit earlier that month by French far-right politician Jean Mélenchon. The preacher was held in detention a day later for another video in which he denounced Sonko's complacency towards homosexuality. In Southern Africa, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for his country's political parties to overcome their differences and find common ground to form the first national coalition government in its young democracy. Ramaphosa said this after final election results were announced, confirming that no party won a majority in last week's vote. Meanwhile, major political parties have started negotiations for either a coalition government or government of unity. Our correspondent Bongani Sisiba tells us more.
The wait is finally over. The results of the South African elections are in, and the country is pressing for a new era of politics.
These elections have tested our strength and the strength of our institution. They've put the integrity of our systems clear for all to see and to test. They have shown and demonstrated the resolve of our citizens to embrace democracy at a time such as this.
South Africa President and ANC leader Cyril Ramaphosa acknowledged the results and thanked the Independent Electoral Commission for the hard work they put in to make sure everything was transparent.
We have held another successful election that has been free, fair, credible, and peaceful. The Independent Electoral Commission has, despite many challenges, many difficulties that you went through, many mountains that you had to climb, once more, you have acquitted yourself with excellence, professionalism, and integrity, and we applaud you as we hereby do.
Meanwhile, the governing party, the African National Congress, has suffered a major blow, losing its majority in parliament. A new kid on the block made a huge upset, taking control of the KwaZulu-Natal economic hub with 58 seats in parliament. ANC won 159 seats in the 400-seat parliament, down from 230 it won in the last election. The Democratic Alliance increased slightly to 87 seats, while the EFF got 39.
A disappointing result which we need to accept, we reflect on, and continue to work harder to get out of the situation we're in.
The 2024 elections were not easy because whatever effort and resources dedicated in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, parts of Gauteng and Mpumalanga were undermined by the commendable and decisive rise of Mkhonto weSizwe, which performed above the EFF in KZN and Mpumalanga.
However, political parties have noted some discrepancies in the IEC work and want them addressed.
We've asked for a recount in 19 voting stations. Now, they're not finished yet, but in 9 that has been finished, we already found that more than 2,000 votes that belongs to the Freedom Front Plus has been given to other political parties. So that's not acceptable.
Still obviously trying to consolidate and making sense of these numbers, because these numbers is not really what we expected.
So what does it mean for South Africa?
I do think that this moment calls for a higher calling on political parties, because a country is not a municipality, and it's in the best interest of politicians to actually behave properly in how they govern or how they even put together these coalition governments, because if they don't act seriously, I have no doubt that the electorate in the next general election would punish them.
The victory for the opposition party is not just a victory, but also a reflection of the growing discontent among voters with the ANC's performance. The party's leaders have been criticized for corruption and inefficiency, and voters are looking for change.
But as the dust settles, it's clear that the real test begins now. For the next few weeks, it will be crucial for South Africa. Political parties will be forced to work together to form a government, and that's going to be no easy task. Rivals will have to put aside their differences and work together for the benefit of the country. At the Results Center in Midrand, for News Central, Bongani Sizeba.
To talk about elections in South Africa, I'm joined on the news by Parliamentary Coordinator, Congress of South African Trade Unions, Matthew Parks. Good evening. Glad to have you join me.
Thank you for having us. Good evening.
Let me start by asking how you would assess the ANC's performance in recent elections, particularly considering the strong support from the Congress of South African Trade Unions.
Yeah, no, thanks. So look, naturally, we are a little bit disappointed that for the first time in 30 years, the ANC has gone under 50%. We had hoped and we had campaigned for the ANC to get an outright majority, because we feel that coalitions, by their nature, are not very stable. Especially, it doesn't help when you have so many socio-economic challenges as a country. But nonetheless, we are humbled by the support that most voters have given to the ANC, especially workers. The ANC is the largest party in the country by far, at 41%. The next closest party behind us is about half of that size. The ANC has an outright majority in 7 out of the 9 provinces. In the other 2 provinces, we didn't do well. We fared quite badly in those 2 provinces. So the ANC will be forming government. The president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, will be returned as president of the country. The question is now just about the modalities of how that government be constituted. Is it a minority government? Is it a coalition government? What are the parameters forming it? But what's clear is that mathematically, the ANC and President Ramaphosa will be leading the next government.
Now, despite the endorsement of the Congress, the ANC did not perform as expected. In your view, why did the Congress support not translate into more votes for the ANC?
Yeah, look, it's natural for a party which has been ruling a country for 3 decades. It's going to lose support. It's going to offend, to irritate some people. It's going to make mistakes. That's natural. It'd be defying the laws of gravity if it didn't lose some support. and it has been doing so. The ANC had to campaign against very difficult odds. We've experienced a very painful decade under the previous president of state capture, of corruption. We've had real problems of electricity load shedding, problems with regards to the performance of municipalities and state-owned companies, the railway network, high unemployment levels and corruption and crime levels. So it's quite a formidable set of challenges. I think it would be shocking if we didn't experience some setbacks in that regard. And I think the fact that ANC has still done well against the real problems with 41% of society, so about 9% short of an outright majority, is a remarkable testimony of the ANC's historical and leadership role in society. I think society is giving a very clear message to the ANC that yes, we still support you, we still want you to do well, but we need to do much better. You need to get your act together. You need to deal with the issues of unemployment, of crime, and of corruption, and so forth. So I think that's a very positive and a humbling message. And I think one could basically say society is giving the ANC one final chance to clean itself up, which is a fair response by society.
And thank you so much for your insight on the news. Parliamentary Coordinator, Congress of South African Trade Unions, Matthew Parks, thank you once again.
Thank you.
In North Africa, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has reappointed Prime Minister Mostafa Madbouly to form a new government after the cabinet resigned on Monday in the customary procedure after the election of a president. Sisi was sworn in on April 2nd, 2024 for his third term as leader of the Arab world's most populous nation. He directed the new government to focus on lowering inflation and regulating markets as well as attracting and increasing local and foreign investment. Targets for new cabinet members would also include preserving the country's national security in light of regional and international challenges and counter-terrorism. The Norwegian Refugee Council says 9 African countries are among the 10 most neglected crises of mass displacement in the world. Burkina Faso tops the list for a second year amid a deepening crisis sparked by years of conflict that has left around 2 million people internally displaced. Violence in the junta-led West African nation forced people to move more than 700,000 times last year, a jump of just over 60% from 2022. Cameroon is in second place with nearly 1.1 million displaced and 500,000 refugees living in the Central African country. Behind it is the Democratic Republic of Congo, where more than 25 million people face various emergencies. You're watching News Central now. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The Association of Mobile Money and Banks Agents in Nigeria, AMBAN, has announced a crackdown on illegal point-of-sale operators in the country. The newly elected Lagos State Chairman of the association, Oluwagunwa Ibirogba, who revealed this, also kicked against the Central Bank of Nigeria CBN directive mandating all point-of-sale agents to register with the Corporate Affairs Communication, CAC.
Mobile money operators under the auspices of the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents of Nigeria have decried the directive of the Corporate Affairs Commission mandating all point-of-sale agents to register with the Commission. At the inauguration of new executives in Lagos, the group insisted that the reason tendered by the Commission that the registration was to curb crime in the fintech space was not tenable, maintaining that it was purely a revenue drive agenda. The group emphasized that it was doing enough to curb crime within its business space.
We are the last mile in the financial inclusion, and we are going to be bringing AMBAN into the right perspective, because the business has been plagued by different forms of malady, and essentially with the cooperations of the security networks, the police, the NSCDC, the EFCC, the DSS, we will be putting some level of sanity in the system.
A lot of regulations are being put in place. They also denied allegations credited to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission that members of the Association of Mobile Money and Bank Agents of Nigeria are colluding with staff of banks to hoard cash or engage in buying and selling of cash.
POS agents are not responsible for naira scarcity. The fact is that as a country, the regulator of the banking industry has put in a policy, cashless policy, in place. And the cashless policy is not peculiar to Nigeria. So a lot of benefits go along with a cashless policy. So they put it in place. And I want to say that Nigeria should not expect that there will be much cash available through banks as it used to be some years ago.
The group also condemned the insistence of Corporate Affairs Commission to deploy the police to execute the directive against those who fail to register their business by July 7.
Nigeria and other members association of the Confederation of African Football African got a relief on Monday after the football body extended the date for the club licensing for CAF competitions. CAF had announced in May that all participating clubs in the 2024-25 inter-club competitions must have their licensing updated on or before 31st of May. CAF also demanded they clear all their debts or arrangement agreements before the end of the month if they want to play in the competition next season. However, according to the latest update from the headquarters of CAF in Cairo, Egypt, the body has decided to extend the date to the 22nd of June 2024. The ongoing strike embarked upon by the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress has affected 8 Super Eagles players as they have been unable to join the rest of their colleagues who have already kick-started preparations for the crucial World Cup qualifying games against Bafana and Benin Republic Squirrels. The 8 players are in the country but unable to arrive in camp because of the ongoing strike. These have stalled domestic flights as well. The 8 players affected include Maduka Okoye, Semi Ajayi, Bright Osayi Samuel, Calvin Barsi, Frank Onyeka, Alex Iwobi, Ademola Lukman, and Paul Onuachu. The indefinite strike has also grounded activities in most tertiary institutions and hospitals across the country. The Nigeria Football Federation Refereeing Development Unit has suspended referee Haruna Abdullahi from further officiating in the Nigeria Premier Football League. Abdullahi was in charge of the March-day 34 fixture involving Doma United and Lobi Stars at the Pantami Stadium, Gombe, on Saturday, the 1st of June 2024, where he was unable to identify an offside positioning, an offence that led to a goal secured in match between the two teams. Doma United won the game 1-0. The move was necessitated after a petition by Lobi Stars to the NPFL. The decision to drop the official has been communicated to the Jigawa Football Federation. An all-British heavyweight showdown between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois is in the works for September 21st at the Wembley Stadium. Prior to Saturday's Queensberry Matchroom 5 versus 5 card, it was hinted by Saudi boxing chief Turki Al-Lakshiks that Joshua's next opponent might emerge from the event. While Deontay Wilder was initially top choice, his defeat to Zheli Zhang shifted the focus. The boy emerged victorious against Hedjovic, securing the IBF's interim belt, possibly paving the way for it to be upgraded to the full IBF heavyweight world title. However, the final decision rests on the IBF's ruling regarding Alexander Usyk's request for an exception to prioritize Tyson Fury rematch over his mandatory challenger. And that's all on the news. But before we go, let's take a look again at some of the major stories. Federal government of Nigeria has called for emergency meeting with organized labor. South Africa's president has urged parties to find common ground after elections. We also told you that Egypt's President Sisi has assigned Prime Minister Madbouly to form a new government. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adedugba.